Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Z. I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. Firstly, thank you so much for all of you who elicited feedback about my tryout black screen, which sadly for majority of you did not work. Totally understand, want to make the experience comfortable for you, but I really appreciate the feedback. I did lift my microphone up, so you'll notice it it's more noticeable. Hopefully it'll cover up the doors that really bothers me, so that way I'm not as distracted by things that are reflected back in the video. So let's get to today's topic. Today's topics that we will be discussing are 3 major signs that you are experiencing transition burnout. Yes, there is such a thing as transition burnout, and those of you who've been going through transition for some time most likely have hit transition burnout, maybe even aware and experienced transition burnout. And for those of you who maybe are just starting or in the middle of transition, this video will really help you to watch out for those signs, because when we're aware of transition burnout, then you can take other necessary steps in order to increase your self-care, in order to take a little bit of a break, and in order to just prevent other things from happening. So I'll be discussing 3 major transition burnout signs. I'm sure there are other signs, so chime below, share what is the other signs you have experienced. This is the 3 most common ones I tend to see in the clients that I work with directly. And when I spot it, I tend to immediately point it out to a client that, hey, wait a second, I think we're hitting transition burnout here. So very, very common. Transition burnout is especially very common for anybody who has been going through transition for some time. Now, as we know, transitions are very different for everybody, and everybody has their own journey. For some people, depending where you're at in the world, access to resources is very scarce, meaning sometimes you have to wait for a year or several years to get access to the resources. For the rest of you, your transition may be prolonged because of the lack of personal resources. Perhaps you are waiting for money to be saved up for surgical transition, or maybe you're hoping you're going to change job and get a better health insurance. Wherever you find yourself on transition path, transition burnout is something that just happens to pretty much everybody. It's something that I think, well, I don't want to say it's inevitable, because there are people, of course, who don't experience it, but I just think it's so common, primarily because transition in of itself is so psychologically, emotionally, physically strenuous. So let's talk about 3 major signs of transition burnout. Now, burnout is just very similar and analogous to other forms of burnout, such as being burnout at your work, being burnout taking care of your kids, being burnout going through school. It's very, very similar. In other words, burnout is essentially when we just really exhausting ourselves, and we're exhausting ourselves on multi-levels. Again, we're exhausting ourselves both physically, emotionally, and psychologically. So that's what burnout is. In this case, your burnout is going to be centered around transition and around aspects of transition, whether it is social steps, medical steps, surgical steps, or just in general, exploring your gender, burnout can also happen. So the first sign that I see that's very, very common as a first sign of transition burnout is when you notice that suddenly you have an increase in a negative thought process, especially a negative thought process towards yourself. When you notice that your own self-talk in your head space has turned negative. Now, I know that a lot of you will have some negative chatter, because a lot of you are going through transition, and a lot of you are comparing yourself to what you want to be, or maybe comparing yourself to others. I think that's pretty much inevitable. And as a result, there's going to be a negative thinking process already, perhaps even inherent from the outset of transition. But we really want to watch out for that negative chatter to go drastically higher up, to really start to increase itself. A lot of times I notice in a narrative, in the words and the dialogue and the sentences that my clients use, suddenly everything is very, very negative. Suddenly everything feels very jaded. Suddenly they feel complete lack and decrease in their self-esteem and their confidence. They're using sentences such as, I will never pass, this will never work out for me, I will never look beautiful, I will never look attractive, I will never look handsome, nobody will ever take me seriously, facial hair will never go away, I will never build up muscle mass. I will never grow breasts. So it's really this never type of dialogue. And then you start to berate yourself on top of that with a negative thinking, where you're really punitive to yourself, where you're really shaming yourself, maybe even guilting yourself, maybe saying that you're not doing enough inside of your headspace. So that's the very first sign. When you notice that your negative dialogue inside of your head, it's almost as if, we all have self-critic, inner critic inside of our headspace, but this is suddenly as if your inner critic has got a microphone and is shouting into the microphone. So if you notice that your negative thinking has really increased, recognize that you are, chances are, experiencing transition burnout. So that's sign number one. By the way, all of these three major signs can obviously and do often coexist together. Now, sign number two. The second sign that you are going through transition burnout is you're starting to feel hopeless. You're starting to feel hopeless about your future. Not only by this time you're jaded, but you're also incredibly starting to be pessimistic. Everything seems impossible. You don't think things are ever going to happen for you. You don't think that things are ever going to work out for you. Everything seems like it's lost any shred of hope. Whatever hope you had or enthusiasm or excitement you had when you started out transition suddenly is gone. And suddenly all you're feeling is that things are never going to happen. Things are never going to come to an end. You will never get the surgery. You will never really go through medical transition. You will never get access to hormones. You just feel complete dread. And you're starting to ask yourself during this period, why even bother? Should I just go back? Why do I even bother with transition? Things just don't seem like it's going to work out. Complete hopelessness. By the way, this type of hopelessness often does breed depression as well. So please be mindful of that. But this is the second biggest sign that I see in clients when suddenly they just feel like, you know what, we just got to stop. This is not going to work out. I would probably say compared to the first one, this is much more difficult one to combat, because the first one has more to do with maybe situational. It tends to be transient. When we hit the point where we feel like we're really losing hope, well, really, I really encourage all of you to work on that, because that's a big sign that you are definitely experiencing burnout. And it's a big sign that you definitely need to take a step back. You really need to reassess your goals. You need to bring yourself back to your vision. You really need to bring yourself to your plan. You really need to bring yourself back to commitment to yourself. The promise you made to yourself to do this for yourself in order to live happier, much more healthier life. So you really need to bring it back to yourself. And in this times, what really helps is to remind yourself that, well, I feel hopeless and this is also going to pass, but I'm still better off than when I was living and struggling with gender dysphoria. So remind yourself of that. So this is the second sign that you're going through transition burnout. The third sign that you're experiencing transition burnout is when you're starting to notice things around you starting to fall apart. I mean, literally fall apart. Suddenly you notice yourself, you're forgetting your car keys. You notice yourself, you forgot your wallet at the restaurant. You notice yourself forgetting to set that alarm. You were supposed to pick up your kids from school and you forgot about your kids. When you have that feeling where things are falling apart, and you have that feeling that you're overstressed, and you have that feeling that you're kind of losing your mind. When I have work burnout, that's how I feel. I feel like, oh my God, Nat, you're losing your mind. That's when I make, for example, mistakes such as supposed to schedule a video release, but it's not scheduled, and I wake up and it's not scheduled, or supposed to have an appointment with a client, but I didn't put it into my calendar, and then a client messages me and I'm not there. Big sign for me that I'm burned out. So when you notice other areas in your life, not just transition, but other areas in your personal life starting to fall apart, you forgot to, again, make a particular appointment, you forgot you have a dental appointment today, it's that forgetfulness of things around you. is a big, very big indicator that you are psychologically burned out. And your mind is overstressed and overexhausted. And as a result of being overstressed and overexhausted, you just can't pay attention to everything. You just can't keep everything in order for you. And that's why you tend to forget. That's the third sign. I see the third sign of burnout probably is one of the most common signs of burnout that I see in my clients, because people just suddenly feel like everything starts to fall apart. And usually they experience this burnout when they take on too much of transitional stress, meaning they are coming out, they are doing their legal name change, they're also keeping up all of their appointments. Maybe they have way too many appointments booked up, whether it's electrolysis, voice training, or maybe some other things in their lives. And they have this consultation to the surgeon booked up. In other words, they have taken on so many transition steps that they are overexhausting themselves with it. I also see people overexhausting themselves with taking on a lot of things that really not your responsibility to take, meaning feeling like you're responsible to explain to your family and to educate everybody in your life and to teach everybody about your identity and to really advocate for yourself 24/7 and to constantly assert yourself. Those things eventually breed exhaustion. Because as human beings, we're not supposed to live like that. We're supposed to just go on our lives. We're not really supposed to assert ourselves 24/7. We're not really supposed to educate other people about ourselves 24/7. I mean, my God, if I had to educate people 24/7 about who I am and where I come from and what my culture is like and so on, I would hit cultural burnout for sure. So we're really not meant to feel like that. So that's another sign that you hit transition burnout. When you do have the signs in your life, and like I said, they can happen simultaneously, they can overlap. When you do have transition burnout and experience it, the best thing to do is to step back. Recognize that you are experiencing burnout. Burnouts are temporary, and burnouts are all about self-care. It's all about looking at your plate. Imagine that your transition is like stepping into a buffet, food buffet, and you take in the plate. You know, when you go to food buffet and you pile up, well, most people tend to pile up everything and anything because they want to try everything. Well, it's like that. You piled up so many things on your plate. And maybe they're not necessarily things you have resources to do in your transition, right? But maybe there are psychological things. Maybe there's things that you feel you need to accomplish. For example, some of you will have plates, those buffet plates, where you have everything, all of those appointments, future appointments set up, all of the things, how far you should be in your transition. The rest of you will have those plates that have mix, a variety of things. And the rest of you will have those plates where perhaps you don't have resources to set those appointments, but you have all these psychological milestones. I should have come out sooner. I should have started this early. I should be further along. I should be figuring that out. It's all this kind of shoes. Regardless of what it is, we're keeping our plates of way too many aspects, too many things. So when you recognize transition burnout, first thing you need to do, you need to look at your plate and you need to ask yourself, what can I take away? You don't have to take away something off your plate permanently, but you need to ask yourself, what can I take away temporarily? Maybe what can I take away for this month? So what can I take away for a week? What can I take away for the next several months? And then I'll bring it back until I regain myself. Another part, when you recognize you are in transition burnout, is what is self-care for you? What will help you? If you burn out because you're physically exhausted, what do you need? Do you need to take a hot bath with salt? Do you need to just give yourself a day when you don't do anything? That is okay to do. It's okay not to do anything. Another thing about transition burnout is how can you take care of your headspace? Do you need a therapy appointment? If you don't have resources for therapy, are there support groups online? Are there other things you can do to yourself to take your mind off of it? Your life is not just transition. There's so many things in your life going on. Don't neglect other areas in your life. What I highly recommend for everybody is aspire to 80-20 rule. What is the 80-20 rule? 80-20 rule is if you're going to work on transition as your goal, Try to accomplish 80% of things with that goal and allow yourself 20% of flexibility. Don't go for 100%. I apply 80-20% rule in all areas of my life, whether it is nutrition, exercise, achieving some of my goals, even creating video content for all of you. I aspire to 80%. What is my 80% of content that I need to create and to have prepared for everybody? What is the 20% that I can just relax? If I aspire to 100% rule, I'm telling you, I would be so burned out from creating as a content. So 80-20% rule is a good way to go about. But recognize when you do have transition burnout. I know that so many of you who are watching this right now are in the midst of transition burnout. I know that as I went through those 3 major signs, some of you went, aha, aha, aha. When we have aha, 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 it's a big sign, take time off. It's okay to take our times of transition. It's okay to allow yourself a week of not thinking about your gender. Your gender is going to be there. It's not going to go anywhere. And I know it's hard to say because a lot of you feel dysphoria. So you're thinking, how can I not think about gender when dysphoria is there? But you need to find ways, better ways to try to cope with it. Please do. It's really, really going to help you. So comment below, let me know, did you hit transition burnout? What did it look for you? What other signs maybe I haven't mentioned that you may have experienced as a result of transition burnout? It's really important to recognize when it's happening to you. It's really important to take a step back. Why? Because when you take a step back, you recharge. When you recharge, you're re-energized. When you re-energize, you can enter your transition feeling better. You can enter any elements of your gender exploration feeling better. So it's really, really important to give yourself some time. Listen, transition is hard. It is so hard. Whether you're doing a lot of things or whether you're just thinking about it, it is difficult. It is strenuous. It really is. It takes a toll on you, and it takes a toll on your body too. So take care of yourself, recognize the signs, comment below, share with me how you deal with burnout happens to you, and whether you recognize that maybe, perhaps, unfortunately, you may be right now in the midst of burnout. Comment below. Love reading all of your comments, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.